This is the dashboard that I use to track all of my expenses. I posted this on Reddit and got quite a few questions on how I created it, so I wanted to make a few videos addressing those questions. Now, I don't want to waste your time, so I've created chapters. Feel free to skip around. And for this particular video, I'm just going to be focused on this main spend page that you see on screen, and then I'll go over how I've set up my files. Also, I've included free Excel and Power BI templates down in the description below so that you don't have to start from scratch. You can also edit and customize these however you want. Before I begin, I just want to say that I do not spend this much money. I play the credit card game with my friends and family, and sometimes I'll buy something for them, they'll pay me back, or vice versa. That way we can help each other hit credit card subs. Also, as you can see, I do have certain portions of the dashboard blacked out just because I want to keep that private. Alright, so let me go over all of the features of my dashboard. Everything that you see on this page right now is controlled by these filters here. Now, right now, it's just year to date because today is July 5th. So there's not really much data for our month to date or quarter to date, and they're also just going to show you the same thing. And so I will keep it on year to date. So starting at the top here, I've got the total spend, and this is the total spend on all of my cards given whatever filters are enabled. Same thing goes for user 2 spend. For me, my user 2 is my mom. And then credits and refunds would be stuff like, let's say I buy something and return it, then I get it returned onto the card. It would show up here. Credits, stuff like, let's say I get a credit card offer and I use it and it posts as a statement credit. That would also be added into this total as well. And then estimated cash back is the estimated amount of money I earn back from the cards, again, given whatever filters are enabled. Now, if I go over to this filter button here, I do have more filter options. For me, the first one would be user, and so it's just me, my mom, and then I classify everyone else's spend as other. It's just easier for me this way, but you can have however many users you want. Next is date, so this is self-explanatory. You just choose whatever time period you want. And then account category and merchant. So account would just be credit cards. So for example, if I just want to see gold, I can see, all of this is just on the gold. As you can see down here, all the transactions show up is they're only gold. Now, let's just remove that for now. And category would be things like dining, groceries, stuff like that. You get the idea. And then merchant would just be, well, whatever merchant I'm buying things from. Moving on to the first visualization, for me, it's just a table. It's just how I like to view it, but you can change whatever you want. Here, for this year to date, as you can see, most of my spend is miscellaneous. But keep in mind, I do classify, everyone else's spend as miscellaneous most of the time. So that's why this is so high. And so you can see that most of my spending is on dining, shopping, stuff like that. And then if I hover over, the visual, I do have tooltips. So you can see most of my shopping was done at Apple, Dell, Newegg, etc. Same thing goes for travel, gas, stuff like that. So you can get more visualizations by hovering over these visuals. Next up is credit card. And so for me, I like to see, where most of my spend is based on what account. So most of it right now is the Freedom Flex. And then if I hover over these numbers here, you can see which category this amount of, so for example, 6,000, most of it is going to dining on the Amex Gold card, which makes sense since it is a dining card. Onto spend over time. So this is just for me to see the trend of my spend. And so if I hover over this, you can see that there is also tooltips for this as well. So for April, I spent 7.5K. And then most of that was miscellaneous, so it's most likely it was other people. And if I really was curious, I can go into the data and see exactly, who or where I was spending it on, etc., stuff like that. And then you can see spend by account as well shows up here. So most of that spend was on the Freedom Flex. And then at the bottom here, we've got the total cashback that I earned that month. At the bottom left, the merchant visualization is self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go over that. And then the bottom right transactions visualization is just a table again, except it shows all of the data within the Excel. And then I just sort it by date so that I could see the most recent transactions. All right, so that is the main spend dashboard page. Now, hopefully you were able to see how amazing Power BI can be when it comes to tracking your finances. And again, everything here is fully customizable. So those top numbers that you see, you can change them to whatever numbers you think are more important. Even the bottom visuals that you see here are also fully customizable. You can change them into charts if you want, or even those tooltips that you saw earlier, you can change those to show anything that you want. All right, so the way I have my file set up is super simple. I use OneDrive where I save a finances folder, and in that folder is where I save an Excel and Power BI file. This way I can access the Excel file from any device, anywhere I am. All right, so the first thing I want to show you is this Excel template here. So let's start at the very bottom. As you can see, I have a separate sheet for each account. So a separate sheet for each credit card. And each of these sheets will be filled with sample transactions. At the top of each sheet, you're going to find the column names. Now, what's great about manually tracking your expenses with Excel is that you can fully control how your data is structured. So, for example, if you don't need user, you can just delete the column altogether. Or if you wanted more columns, let's say you want a broad category and subcategory, you can add those into your own sheet so that you can pull those fields into your dashboard later. Now, I'm just going to use my format, but if you make any changes to the Excel, make sure that all credit cards are using the same structure. So my setup is super simple. I just have these column names that you see at the top. Account, user, date, and transaction are pretty self-explanatory. And for category, you can choose to have as many categories as you want and name them whatever you want. As long as you make sure that the naming system is the same across all of your cards, the filters in Power BI will work. Now for the debit and credit. Since this is a credit card, whenever you make a transaction, you want to credit the account. And then whenever you pay off the card, you'll debit the account, as you can see here. Now, balance is where we're going to start getting into formulas. So if you look at the very first balance row, you'll see that it's just debits minus credits. And then everything after that will just take the previous balance plus any debits and subtract any credits. So as you can see here on the next one, it is the same thing. So previous balance plus any debits minus any credits. And then all you have to do is just drag it down whenever you have a new transaction. Next is notes, and you can put whatever you want in here, but this could be a great tool for you to find transactions later on. So for example, if I were to type dining with friends, if I wanted to find this transaction again in the future, I could just go into the Power BI or even the Excel and just search dining with friends. Multiplier is going to be another formula column. So if I go into here, you'll see that since it's the gold card, I've made it so that if the category is dining or grocery, then I'll get 4%. Otherwise, I get 1%. And this is going to be different for each card. So you're going to have to tweak the formula based on whatever multipliers are available for your card. And then last but not least, the estimated cash back is just going to be whatever you spent multiplied by the multiplier. And then that's it. One last thing before we move on to Power BI, I want to mention that I did include a sample bank account in this Excel template. Now I want this video to be focused on tracking your spend, so I'll create a separate video later on showing you how to expand your dashboard to include that banking information. But right now I will just briefly touch over this bank account just because it's important in making sure that your accounts are balanced. So looking at this bank account, you can see that the last few transactions have been payments out to credit cards. And if we look at the Amex Gold specifically, you could see that on the 11th, there was a payment to the gold of $300. And if we go over to the gold sheet, you could see that same transaction appear here. And so now the accounts are balanced. All right, now let's move on to the Power BI. All right, so now I have the Power BI template open. And if you're opening your file for the first time, maybe you might see a bunch of errors here, or maybe you see the same thing, but if you click refresh, maybe it'll show you an error after that. But basically, as you know, Power BI is based on file paths. So since you're opening for the first time, you don't have the data connected. So all you have to do is go to transform. And then for each of the sheets, you just make sure that the data is selected. So you go all the way to the right where the applied steps are. You go to the source, click the settings icon, and then you can browse for wherever you saved your Excel file. And again, I do recommend using OneDrive. That way you can access the Excel file on any device, wherever you are. After you select where you saved the file, you just click OK. And here, for example, you might see this. And so you just make sure that when you're on the Chase card, you choose the Chase table. If you're on the Amex card, you choose the Amex table. So for example, I will redo this just to show you. So I'm on the Chase card, and let's say I just chose the source, and I choose the Chase card, continue, and it shows you what was in the Excel file. One thing that I forgot to mention was once you reconnect the data and choose the source, make sure you click close and apply. Now, one other thing that you're going to see in this Power BI is this combined table here. And what this is basically all of the credit card sheets appended together. Since all of the data sets are all using the same format, you can easily just append it all. And basically, if you don't have this, or maybe you're creating your own Power BI, all I did was basically go to append, queries, append as new, 3 more tables, and then you select every single credit card sheet and add. And that's how you get this combined credit cards. Well, you can rename it to whatever you want, but I just called it combined credit cards. And then same goes for when you have a new credit card and you've got a new sheet in the Excel, you just add the data. And when you go into the transform here, you'll be able to see it appear here. And all you have to do is just select it when it appears at the bottom, click add, and it will add to this appended table. And so here you can see my source is just, again, all of these cards combined. And then since most of the visuals will be pulling from this aggregated data table, I do like to make sure that all of this is clean and organized. And so what I've done here, as you can see, I've got a few extra steps. So if you create yours from scratch, you might just have these 3 first steps. If you're using the template, you'll have these other steps as well. But basically what I did was I sorted by the date, and then I added an index at the end. So you can see it just counts from 1 to however many rows we're going to have. And then I changed the type of debit, credit, and balance and made sure that they were a fixed decimal number. This last step is not really necessary. At most, I think it would just affect how the numbers are formatted in the visuals. But I just like to keep it as the fixed decimal number. Now, you could also just, have this change type wherever you want. It could be taken before or after you sort the rows. It doesn't really matter. Now, there are 2 more items that I added to this Power BI to make everything work, and it is these 2 tables here, the calendar table and the month to date table. So the calendar table is super simple. It's a calculated table that takes, the earliest date all the way to the latest date available from the aggregated table. So just calendar, min, max of whatever your aggregated table is called. Mine is combined credit cards. Now, the second table I added is also a calculated table, but it's basically, I got this from a YouTube video by Havens Consulting, and I'll link it down below so you could watch through that if you want. But I just copied their DAX code and pasted it in, but it's super simple. It's basically, you've got today's date, and then the date of the start of the year, date of the quarter, start of the quarter, date of the start of the month, and then the dates all between the start of the year to today, start of the quarter to today, start of the month to today, and that's all put into a table. And then it puts the second column, fills the second column with year to date, quarter to date, or month to date, depending on what it is. And obviously there will be overlap because there will be dates that qualify for multiple. All right, so let's head over to the model view here just to show you how it's set up. And as you can see, it's super simple. It's just these 3 tables connected. So we've got the aggregated table connected to the calendar, or I guess we can say the calendar is connected to the aggregated table from date to date, obviously. And then month to date is also connected to the calendar, date to date. And if you're creating your Power BI from scratch, make sure that when you create these things, that you don't forget to add the relationship. So here you can see the combined aggregated date is connected to the calendar table's date, and then month to date's date is connected to the calendar's date as well. And as you can see here, this relationship is bi-directional. So you do need to make sure that this month to date selection table is connected to the calendar and that the cross filter direction is set to both. But other than that, it's just super simple, just like that. All right, now I want to go over a example transaction with you just to show you what I do whenever I have a new spend that I want to put into this data. And so I'm going to go over to the Excel. Let's say that I spend on the Amex Gold. And so if I type in A, you'll see that Excel tries to autofill, and then all you do is just press tab. Same thing with names here, but since all the names right now are just user, it's not going to try to autofill, because if you type U, it doesn't know whether you want user 1 or user 2. But if you've got unique names, this will try to autofill as well. And then for date, this is going to be manual, so I'm just gonna choose July. And then for transaction, if I type C, you can see that it tries to autofill again. And then if you've got a new place, then you definitely are gonna have to type it in yourself. But then if you go back to it later on, it'll try to autofill. So at the beginning, you could see that it is going to be a little bit manual, but once you get this going, Excel does autofill a lot of it for you. Same thing with categories. So let's say I do dining, you'll see that it autofills, and then let's just say we spent $50. And then here, the balance, all you have to do is just drag down. And then as you saw earlier, multiplier and estimated cashback does autofill by itself. So overall, super simple and easy when it comes to this Excel side. And you can see that a lot of it does become, autofill after a while. So let me just close this for now. And then if you go back to the Power BI, it's not going to show up immediately, but if you go to the top here and click refresh, you will see it'll take a second. And then you'll see the data shows up, Amex Gold, what we just typed in, the July 2nd food for 50. And then also spend over time works now because it's not just 1 month worth of data. But yeah, that's it.